They say there's a mine in eastern Kentucky that never truly went silent. Long after the last shift ended, long after the company sealed the shaft and welded a steel plate over the mouth of the pit, people swear the ground still talks. Locals call it Hell Door Mine, a place where the mountains themselves seem to breathe, where cold mist rises from cracks in the earth, like the exhale of something waiting below. At night, drivers on the old mining road report hearing a deep, metallic groan rolling out from the tree line, a sound too heavy to be wind, too steady to be an animal, and too familiar to ignore. Some describe it as machinery coming back to life. Others say it's the echo of men who never escaped. But most people use only one word for it: screaming. A long, dragging wail that rises through the shaft, vibrates the soil, and fades as if someone deep underground just ran out of breath. One man claimed he shouted, "Hello?" into the dark. And the mine, as if offended, screamed back. For decades, the county tried to explain it. Old pipes, air pressure, animals trapped inside. But then the reports changed. The screams became rhythmic, intentional, almost responsive. People said the sound didn't just rise from the mine. It targeted whoever stood near the sealed door, like something beneath the earth was choosing who to answer. And if you listen long enough, you can hear a second voice beneath the first. A whisper, a warning, a name you shouldn't know. Tonight, we're going inside the story of that abandoned shaft, a place born from real Kentucky mining history, fed by Appalachian folklore, and wrapped in one terrifying question. What exactly is screaming beneath the mountain, and why does it answer back? To understand why Hell Door Mine unnerves people so deeply, you have to understand where it stands. Eastern Kentucky isn't just coal country. It's a place shaped and scarred by a century of mining. Small towns cling to the edges of the Appalachian Mountains. Old company houses lean toward abandoned rail lines. Rusting tipples rise like broken skeletons above the trees. And beneath all of it lie hundreds of miles of tunnels carved by men who were never sure if they'd see daylight again. This region has seen disasters powerful enough to shake entire counties. In December 1970, the Hurricane Creek mine exploded without warning. 38 miners were killed instantly, the deadliest mining accident in the U.S. in years. The blast was so strong that houses miles away rattled like someone had slapped their walls. And in towns across Harlan County, families kept a terrible tradition, leaving a lamp burning in the window for the men who didn't come home. That's the Appalachia Hell Door Mine was born into, a landscape where danger wasn't rare. It was routine. With so many tragedies, folklore followed quickly. Miners spoke of Tommyknockers, restless spirits that warned of cave-ins by tapping on the stone. Some said the taps were helpful. Others said they were a countdown. Stories spread about voices in sealed tunnels, footsteps where no one walked, and cold breaths drifting through shafts that should have been completely dead. So when people in hell, for certain, started hearing screams rising from a welded-shut mine, it didn't feel like a new mystery. It felt like the past was clawing its way back to the surface. And for some locals, the most unsettling part wasn't the sound itself, but the fact that the mine responsible wasn't even one of the major operations. It was a small, forgotten shaft tucked into the hillside, a place with no reason left to make noise, a place that should have been silent, but instead refused to sleep. Hell Door Mine wasn't supposed to have a history worth remembering. It wasn't big. It wasn't profitable. And for most of its life, it barely appeared in company records. But the few documents that do exist tell a story far darker than a forgotten shaft should carry. The mine opened quietly in the early 1930s, a small auxiliary tunnel meant to support a larger operation nearby. Workers joked that the shaft felt wrong the moment it was dug. The air was colder than the surrounding tunnels, and tools left overnight were often found moved, as if someone had dragged them across the floor. Then came the incident of 1953. 17 miners were working the lower level when a sudden collapse sealed off the main passage. The rescue team reached the first chamber in hours, but the men deeper inside were trapped in a pocket with no clean air and no exit. For 2 days, rescuers heard tapping, slow, deliberate knocks echoing through the stone. A signal every miner knew, we're alive. But on the morning of the third day, the rhythm changed. The taps grew erratic, faster, then violent, as if the men weren't signaling for help, but fighting against something in the dark. And then, silence. When the rescuers finally broke through, they found only 11 bodies. 6 men were simply gone. No remains, no tools, no sign they'd continued deeper, because according to every map, there was no deeper. The company closed the shaft a month later. They welded a steel door over the entrance, posted a single warning sign, and moved on to the next project, as if the missing men were an accounting error. But people in the nearby hollows never forgot those taps. They said the mountain didn't collapse. It swallowed. And that whatever took the missing miners was still down there, still hungry, still listening. For decades, the mine stayed sealed, quiet, abandoned, just another hole in a hillside. Until the late 1970s, when the door started making noise again. The first new reports came quietly. A hunter, passing the ridge at dusk, heard a low, metallic hum rolling out from behind the welded door. He thought it was wind, until he realized the sound had a pulse, a steady rhythm, almost like breathing. Weeks later, a pair of teenagers hiking the hillside claimed they heard something worse. A scream. Not the sharp, panic kind you hear from a person. This one was long, dragging, echoing through the metal plate, as if someone, deep below, was being pulled across stone. Curious and stupid, one of them shouted into the dark, "Hello, anyone down there?" For a moment, nothing. Then the door vibrated and a howl erupted from beneath the ground, so violent it rattled leaves off nearby branches. After that, the stories multiplied. Campers said their tents shook at night. Drivers felt their steering wheels vibrate as they passed the old mining road. People living miles away reported a noise like a train breaking underground. In 1992, a local man brought an old camcorder to the site. When the ground rumbled, dust on the surface didn't scatter outward. It pulled inward, toward the sealed shaft, like something was drawing air down instead of pushing it out. That footage became a quiet obsession for a few amateur researchers. They returned with basic seismic gear, hoping to record natural shifts in the mountain. But the readings showed something unnatural. The vibrations weren't random. They weren't shaped like wind pressure or soil settling. They came in bursts, repeating patterns, as if whatever made the mine scream was responsive. One researcher whispered later, "Stone doesn't answer you back. Air doesn't answer you back. But something under that mountain does." Whatever was trapped beneath Heldor Mine wasn't just making noise. It was trying to communicate. And what it said next left the locals sleepless. Locals eventually stopped calling it the Screaming Shaft. They started calling it something older, something pulled from Appalachian mining folklore. Tommyknockers. In the old stories, Tommyknockers were spirits of miners who died underground. They warned the living by tapping on rock before a collapse. Some said the knocks were kindness, Others said they were a lure, a trick to pull men deeper into the dark. But whatever lived beneath Haldor Mine didn't behave like the Tommyknockers of legend. It was louder, stronger, and far more deliberate. People began hearing voices, not shouting, but murmuring through the metal plate, as if someone on the other side was trying to speak through water. Hikers claimed the whispers called their names. One man said he heard his dead brother's voice, begging him to open the door. Another swore he saw a hand, black with coal dust, slide up the steel surface and vanish as if yanked downward. Animals avoided the hillside entirely. Dogs refused to approach the mining road. Birds circled the ridge but never landed. And anyone who lingered too close reported a rising pressure in their skull, a pulsing ache, like something inside the earth was pushing back. By the late 90s, people living in the neighboring hollows started keeping their windows shut at night. They said the mine wasn't just screaming anymore, it was calling. One witness described it best. It sounded like someone trapped underground, but not someone trying to escape. Someone trying to warn us. That frightened the locals more than anything. Because warnings meant danger, danger building, moving, getting closer. And then came the night when the mine didn't scream, whisper, or rumble. It begged. A single, desperate word rose from beneath the mountain, not distorted, not distant, but clear enough to freeze every bone in the body. Help! But the way the voice echoed, the way it bent back on itself, the way it repeated exactly the same each time, it wasn't a man's cry for help. It was an imitation. Something below was learning their voices. And soon, it would use them. The night the voice cried, "Help!" 3 men from a nearby hollow hiked to the sealed shaft with flashlights and rifles. They didn't expect to rescue anyone. They just wanted to hear the sound again, to prove to themselves it was real. But the mine didn't scream that night. It knocked. 17 taps. Slow. Measured. Each one echoing through the steel with the unmistakable rhythm every miner knows. We're alive. It was the exact same signal reported in the 1953 collapse, the last message the trapped miners sent before their knocks turned frantic and vanished forever. The men froze. One whispered, "That can't be them," but the tapping repeated, same pace, same pattern, like a recording replaying from deep inside the mountain. A local sheriff's deputy arrived and placed his ear against the door. He staggered back instantly. "It's not echoing right," he said. "It's not bouncing inside a chamber. It's coming from lower." Engineers later lowered a vibration sensor through a narrow crack in the weld. The readings were impossible. Whatever made the knocks was nearly 300 meters deeper than the level where the missing miners had last been seen. But there was no tunnel there. No map showed a chamber. Nothing man-made should exist at that depth. One geologist reviewed the data and quietly muttered, "This isn't a collapse zone. It's a cavity. Something hollow, something big." Even worse, the knocks started responding to voices. When one researcher asked, "Can you hear us?" the steel door answered with 2 taps. When he stepped closer, the door flexed, a subtle, inward bow, as if pressure from below was pushing against it. They left immediately. That's when the final discovery happened. A thermal imaging camera pointed accidentally at the ground captured faint heat signatures moving beneath the soil, patterns shifting, rising, and gathering directly under the sealed shaft. Not like machinery, not like gas pockets, like something alive, something waiting, something that had heard their voices and was deciding how to answer next. Whatever moved beneath Haldor Mine never broke through the steel door. Maybe it couldn't. Maybe it was waiting for someone else to open it first. Officials reinforced the entrance, sealed every gap, and declared the site geologically unstable. Locals say that's just the polite version. The truth feels closer to this. Something down there is still aware, still listening, still answering. Some believe the screams were pressure vents or collapsing tunnels. Others think they were the echoes of the missing miners, voices trapped in stone. But a few, the ones who heard the taps respond perfectly, believe something far older than the mine was awakened by the collapse. And it has spent decades learning how to mimic us. The last recording ever taken near the door captured a whisper, soft, close, almost gentle. I hear you. If Helldoor Mine teaches anything, it's this. When the earth begins to speak, you pray it never learns to speak back. But before we leave this mystery behind, there's another place on Earth where the silence runs far deeper and far more dangerous. A massive lake, larger than some seas, has been trapped beneath Antarctic ice for nearly 15 million years. No sunlight, no air, no surface life. Yet satellite sensors recently detected movement, heat pulses rising, from a world that should be frozen solid. Scientists drilled only once, and their final transmission didn't sound like water. It sounded like pressure pushing back. If Helldoor Mine is a mystery screaming upward, Lake Vostok is a secret buried under 4 kilometers of ice, and whatever is down there might not want to stay buried. That's where our journey goes next.